Welcome back to the Eric Krown Crypto channel. Wishing you a happy early start to this nice hump day over here as we get ready to get humped by good old Jerome Powell, whispering sweet nothings into your ears and throughout the night as we get prepared for FOMC day, of which is going to really drive the major biases for the higher term time frame setups we've been observing on this channel for the past few weeks here. And I suspect that this is going to be the spark that essentially ignites the next major move, which brings us into October. Again, we're going to be going over this in more statistically based format. But before we get into that, I should actually make a major announcement. My new program just dropped as of the last few hours. It is a Krown Quant project. What it is a bunch of strategies back-tested, actually 10 strategies I should add, back-tested, shown the statistics with, of course, explained how to actually perform, and then live trades go alongside of it as well. Of course, there is more information in the promotional link below, and other than that, Bybit actually has a new promo going on with the link in the description below. For Bybit, you can get 0% on maker fees, not just for spot price action, but also for derivatives as well, which is, in my opinion, quite good and something that I am rather happy with. So it would be quite it would be good to continue with that promo, just because that does save quite a fair bit of money. Anyways, let's get into the actual price action charts right now. Let's start it off with the 2-day time frame, which is closing tonight. Funny how that works. The 2-day time frame with the major signal brewing is closing tonight at 7 p.m. Eastern time, and we're likely going to get the actual full-on firing effect of this signal today. Sorry, at the end of the day, I should say. So what essentially is a signal? Well, the signal is this. It is a 2-day BBWP, which represents volatility, aka the dispersion of returns, getting down towards extreme lows. Basically, anytime that we do observe this getting down to extreme lows, which I define as anything around 10 percentile or lower, the expansion phase from these extreme lows has led to an average move of about 34.5, or about 30, almost 35% right here, as you can see, done over the course of about 2.5 weeks from the signal confirmed. The stochastic oscillator has gone the correct direction on the volatility expansion just about 84.5% of the time over the past 4 to 5 years. And the first standard deviation, which is where we expect 68% of the results to fall between, would give us a range between about 25.5% all the way up to 44%. So what does that mean for right now? Well, the signal is obviously brewing, as we do observe that 2-day BBWP is obviously expanding actually off the lows as of right now. I would not say that this signal is fully confirmed, though. Full confirmation, as you can see right here, and here, is when the BBWP is above the moving average with a positive slope, and the moving average also doing the same as well. So upward sloped. And in this case, we don't necessarily have all of this just yet, but of course, one thing before the next, and obviously this would be the next sort of Lego brick to put in the Jenga tower. I don't even know. I was actually looking at these Legos the other day. It's like it awoke in the kid in me. It was actually looking pretty damn fun to do. Anyways, the reason why I bring this up and the reason why this one is ever so important as of today is because we do have the pivot for the stochastic oscillator. That means that if Bitcoin closes today below 20,400, we will get our second close of a closure with downside stochastic momentum pressure. And it will also be considered a rejection of getting out of the bearish control zone. And this would imply that the probabilities will be more reasonable to expect towards the downside. Again, stochastic oscillator has gone the correct direction on the volatility expansion about 84.5% of the time. So if we were to play around with these numbers here, and I'll just go with the lower end of the first standard deviation and also the average move from the signal given, which we would define as actually a couple bars ago, if it does start to expand from here, well, if we go to the lower end of the first standard deviation, 25% would put Bitcoin in like the mid 15s. 35% obviously puts Bitcoin like at 13 to 14, and what was the other one? Like 44% puts it at like 12,000 basically. And we'd expect that to move to occur within the next 2.5 weeks, basically starting from today if that gets confirmed. By the same token, let's say that we see a biblical, not necessarily biblical, but like a pretty impressive rally based off of the FOMC event, which, could very well happen. I mean, we've all seen crazier things than like a $1,400, $1,500 rally. If Bitcoin does close the day above 20,400, I would be looking to apply those same stats to the upside. Now, I'll tell you in a second why I do think the downside is more likely as of right now. But in this case, just playing around with numbers, 25.5% puts Bitcoin back at about $24,500. 35% puts Bitcoin at 26.5, and 44% puts Bitcoin basically back at around 29 or 28 or so. So of course, it's not all said and done until we get the full-on signal confirmed later today. Here's the thing though, I would say that the downside has a higher probability as of right now. One, because of this metric over here, which again depends upon today's closure, and then two, the 5-day time frame. So the 5-day time frame is another big one that we've been focusing on this channel, and there was a big 5-day signal that fired off back on over here in middle of August when Bitcoin got rejected from about 25,000 bucks. It's the same signature as far as the actual signals go, again, or very similar, I should say. The 5-day BBWP getting down to about 15 percentile and then expanding from these lows, alongside the 5-day stochastic oscillator, which has actually been perfect in getting the volatility expansion direction over the past 4 years. That's not going to be true for forever, obviously, or it's not even true like for forever already over here, but in the past 4 to 5 years, it has been actually perfect in doing exactly that, which is interesting. Anyways, in this case, it is still nosediving as long as Bitcoin is closing below 20,140 or so. And also, again, playing out a trendline regression rejection over here. Anyways, the stats on this one, if applied from where the signal was given, which was back on over here, actually do happen to line up quite well with the 2-day time frame. So in this case, the signal was given, again, middle of last month. It takes an average amount of 37 days to play out, so that basically brings us to about the same time, end of September, early October, basically. Average move from signal given 42.5% or so. First deviation 35.25 all the way up to 49.5. So from that 25 rejective high, 35% brings you back down towards where? At about $16,500. So now we can kind of come up with a range of reasonable targets to the downside coming into early October if the 2-day follows through. Big if right there, and we'll talk about confirmation as well from another angle in a second. Somewhere between about $16,500 to $15,500. Again, price action can be wiki as fuck. 42% obviously brings you down to like 15-ish, 15.5, so a little bit more in alignment with the 2-day time frame. And 49.5% brings you all the way down to like 12,000 bucks, which I think would be a little bit that just seems a little bit greedy at this point, to be honest with you. Of course, if it were to come to the upside, there is no signal to be made to the upside here. It would just close off the current signal if Bitcoin were to rally back above this number and close there, not tonight, but tomorrow night. So again, these two signals very likely going to have great confluence with each other. And that's why it's a big focus for myself. Now, I'll go into a few other pieces of price action analysis here because I think that it provides, a more well-rounded picture perhaps. And the 3-day time frame just closed last night on CME, and it did confirm 1, 2, 3 drives of hidden bearish divergence with that closure below the last 3-day low. So with the 3-day RSI confirming that and also breaking back into the bearish control zone, I would look at this as more likely to break down as well. And if we go over here to the 5-day time frame, which is closing tomorrow night on spot price action, same thing. 1, 2, 3 drives confirmed with any sort of a closure, basically below about 19, especially below 19,000 bucks. So again, just added confluence for downside pressure. On top of that, if we go over here to the 5-day stochastic oscillator for CME, not for spot price action, it's still down. It actually just closed last night, and the reason why that's relevant is because it is still showing downside pressure as long as Bitcoin's below 19,600. So here's the thing with this though, is that the 5-day stochastic momentum on CME is it's so fucking far down here already. When it gets into these critical zones, it does imply that it's difficult to keep momentum, that extreme for that long. So it's more likely to get a bounce. But this could still take 2 to 3 periods to really get going, and that would actually still bring us into early October. Obviously, if we were to go to the 3-day as well, which closed last night. 19,300 is going to be the pivot on CME on spot price action, actually 18,450, which is actually quite interesting here. That one does close today as well. So that would say that if you are going to be looking for a breakdown, you're probably looking for it to happen or really get started today. If Bitcoin really holds here again for another day, probably things are going to start to flip back around here. It's kind of had a lot of attempts to already break down. So I do think that that does deserve some recognition. Anyways, going back into the low-term timeframes, I really don't care for low-term timeframes on days like today because, you know, things are just going to be so fucking wicky both ways, obviously, as they typically are during these events. But I would like to mark off some areas of interest. Obviously, the stochastic momentum pivots are actually very similar to the short-term timeframe pivots as well. That being about 20,300 to the upside is the big one, 19.5 for a more medium-term one, and to the downside, you know, basically below our current lows, you know, 18,000 bucks basically on any sort of a higher term time frame closure. I would say that that would also, or should naturally confirm the higher term time frame signals as well for breakout to the downside. But again, if Bitcoin can hold here for another day, or let's say the Fed comes out and, you know, they're not going to, like, maybe they do a 50 basis point hike, which probably very unlikely, but maybe a 75, you know, maybe the market interprets that as bullish. Could very well be. But for right now, a lot more things from a probabilistical standpoint pointing towards the downside. So I do think it's more relevant to be speaking about that, and then just be aware of where things start to change around, and also be very open-minded that today's event is very, 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 very likely going to drive some harsh price action. And it would certainly not be out of the question to see things, you know, trade into the 17s or the 20s, of which that's really going to, you know, mark off the biases for the following few weeks. So very likely to get follow through from there. All right, sweet. I think that's it for me today. Again, I want to remind myself that we are going on a little trip soon, that being tomorrow. So we're going to have limited connectivity. We're going to have limited, you know, means of communicating for our support girls. Please give them some time. They'll do their best, as will I as well. And you know, once we have like a steady connection, I'll be back on it. So cool. Other than that, yeah, wishing you the best as always. Take care, much love, and see you hopefully soon.